So that was nice, right? You calm? Healing. That's what we're going to talk about today, healing. People who are going to watch this on YouTube, they're going to see all that wandering around that I just did. They're going to say, wow. What's going on? First time, I go, what's going on with this guy? They'll probably keep watching just to find out. Did you see the Northwest Quarterly? The magazine's out here. We got our ad in it. So you can take one. Take one till they're gone. It's a nice magazine. With very, very high production values. But we got 2 calls from it. So we'll see. We had one woman who said she'd be here this Sunday. She didn't say what time. So obviously it must be 10:30. So healing. It's a mystery. I used to hate that. When somebody would say, you know, when I asked a question when I was young about spiritual things that people didn't have the answer to, they would say, well, it's a mystery. You have to just wait and see. Because they'd say something like, you know, through a glass darkly now, but then you'll see, you know. And this was not sufficient answer for me. That I want to know what the answer to the question is, right? Well, there's some answers that we're just not going to know. And this is the case with healing, because what we've seen, this has been, over the years, we have had a healing ministry. We have had people that had remarkable healings, both physically and mentally. And of course, you know, you want to say, yes, we've had spiritual healings, but the fact of the matter is, spirit doesn't have to be healed. Spirit is whole and perfect all the time. It's just we keep wiping stuff over it so that we're kind of muddy it up a little bit, but in our vision, but not in reality. But the thing about this healing is that what the Course in Miracles says about it is, if the mind is healed, and it's talking about totally healed, the body just goes along. The body will be healed also, right? So when I think about the various infirmities that I've had and still am having to one degree or another, I realize that the mind is not totally healed. And really what we're talking about here is this coming to wholeness, coming to oneness in mind. To that total healing, what it is really becoming aware and then in tune with the reality that we are all in this together. The reality that we are one with, and then you can fill in the blank. That and you know, it's funny because the meditation that we did was about being on the earth, being in the earth, but we remember the teaching of being in the earth, being in the world, but not of the world. Because this just is really our temporary place where we are at. And and I guess that the temporary, how long that is, it really actually depends on us. And but not of the world means that we are of something greater, that we are of spirit. And spirit is always unified. Spirit is always one. But we don't see that because we are in the world. And what we see in the world is separation. What we see in the world is conflict. What we see in the world is disharmony. What we see in the world is lack. But also, if we look closer, if we can just relax and look closer, we will see that the world is also a symbol for the unity of spirit. Because the fact is, the world is all connected. The web of life is all connected. And it is our denying that fact that has caused much of the problems, probably most of them, all of them, that we experience in the world. But when we look, and you know, in past times, we didn't know. We really didn't have the scientific knowledge to understand that life was really all connected and that we all were involved in this web and that it was important to us and to the quality of our lives that we take care of the rest of life, because we actually are the ones that are in a position to do so. And in the past we may not have been. But what happened, and you can see that if you look in Genesis, you see that the Garden of Eden event, when the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is consumed, that the knowledge that comes from that is that there is separation, that there is, and then we're sent, and the sentence is, when we're sent out of this garden, the sentence is, to the man, the ground will not give up its fruits willingly to you anymore. And to the woman, it's that you will bear your children in pain, you will love your husband, but both of them are going to break your heart. So this is, I mean, the sentence for eating of the fruit is the disharmony that we still experience. And that mindset tells us that we are in conflict with the world, and that is our lot in life until we transcend it. Now, it's a very negative connotation until you start thinking about the fact that we have the power to transcend it. That we have the power to move above it, but we have to ask for help. This is so interesting. I love this idea of asking, that we ask for help, that we ask for strength, that we ask for guidance. Because it's not the same kind of asking as many of us have experienced when we're in those foxholes, when we find ourselves in times of trouble and we pray asking for, please God, get me out of this one, and then we make a deal. I promise not to do that again. This is not the kind, see, the God that we are praying to then is really a punishing God. Because this is what we're thinking. I mean, and not only that, but capricious, in that we think somehow we're going to change God's mind about the situation. But what we need to realize in our minds is God's mind is always set on good. God's mind is always set on what's best for all of us. So when we're asking, we don't want to ask in a begging kind of way, because that would imply that if we beg hard enough, loud enough, or cry enough tears, that God's going to change particular circumstances. What God's doing is always providing a path out of the trouble. The trouble's here. I mean, we're experiencing it. We're in it. And so goodwill is that path that's always being offered to us that we can move out of it by doing the thing that leads us out of it. The problem is that in our ego, in our personality, we don't know what the answer is. We get ideas, we have opinions about it, but operating out of ego, we make errors in our next move, and we end up, the problem gets worse, or our suffering gets deeper. And so this is why we ask. What we ask God is, show me your will. Because we're not afraid. When we get into that, this is the position of humility that is correct. That we realize we are not our own creator. And what we have actually made is the mess. But that we are part of creation, and that we can ask God, Spirit, however you want to call it, creation, whatever you want to call it, that to ask for, what do I do next? In the moment, and generally the answer will come in some way. It's not going to come. I've never experienced it. Well, one time I experienced it actually as a sentence that came back. A group of words came back to me when I asked. Any other time it's been just a feeling, a picture, a vision, a sense, an intuition of what to move. But I will tell you that it's not the first thing that comes to mind, because the first thing that comes to mind is always something involving fear, lack, self-centeredness, panic, anxiety. I've got to do this. I got to do this before the next bad thing happens. But with this guidance comes peace. And this is the beginning of healing, is this ability to come to peace inside. Because it's all the tumult, it's all the chaos that's going on in us that keeps us from setting the mind in a place where it can deal with whatever the disorder is. It is from peace that the healing comes. And so, I don't know if I know I've told the story to some of you. I think I've told it here at this podium, but when I was a kid, I used to watch, I was fascinated by watching Oral Roberts on television. And he would have these altar calls, and he'd bring people up, and he'd lay hands on them, and they'd fall down like a sack of potatoes, and then they'd get up and be healed, right? People in wheelchairs would get wheeled down there, and he'd get them up out of the wheelchair, then they'd start walking around, everybody crying, carrying on. And even when I was a kid, I thought, this is not real. This is some kind of circus. This is, some show that's going on here. And I dismissed it as being just theatrical, right? Even young, but there was something about it that I just liked. I mean, I liked the theater of it. And he really had a way of doing it that people got excited about. And again, and as I grew older, I mean, my thoughts about this whole thing were more and more in line with, I actually thought, it was a carnival, it was a shill. It was that the people were shills that were getting healed, right? And there might have been some of that going on. But later on, I came to a conclusion that something else may have been happening also. And it wasn't that Oral Roberts had the power to heal people. Now, I do believe that they actually did some theater where they brought people out there. Whether he was involved in those decisions or not, I don't know. It would always work better if you had like some underling do the thing and let you think that you were actually healing those people, wouldn't it? That would always work better. But anyway, what happened to me was I was attending Unity in Chicago. We used to drive in there every Sunday, and we took Steve from Kansas City, came one day, and Tommy Chacho went with, and we were going there to see what we always did. I mean, we went to see Mike Matoin many times, and then Ed took it over, and we think we're going to get the normal sermon. And then this congregation at Unity in Chicago are all the artistic and intellectual people, and so they're not about faith healing. I mean, they're about faith. All of them that come there have faith and believe in spirit and believe that God is good, but they're not about this kind of stuff. But Johnny Coleman has a church in Chicago, and Johnny Coleman was the first female African American woman in Unity in the 50s. She went down to Lee Summit, Missouri, and went to that school, and I just can't imagine the kind of experience that she had there. I mean, not good. But she made it through. But she established this church in Chicago. And she broke away eventually from Unity and had her own thing going on. But she had thousands of members. And they were very charismatic in the church. And, just a really uplifting experience. The music is fantastic. Well, anyway, they would I didn't even know this, but every year they would send one of their ministers to Unity in Chicago to do this healing service. And so I get there, and the woman, there's two women. One with this marvelous voice, and she was singing, and then the minister gave the lesson. And the lesson, I want to hear a lesson. I want to hear something that gets me going, that's exciting. And it really wasn't happening. her lesson was kind of weak, but she did the lesson first, and then she started the meditation, and she said, this is going to be a healing meditation. And she says, what I want you to know right now is, I do not heal. God heals. She said, can you say that with me? God heals. And so she gets a whole everybody in the congregation yells back at her, God heals. She said, God heals. And she said, remember that when we're going through this. It's not me. And so then she starts to do this meditation. And we all do what we're supposed to do in a meditation. We close our eyes. Everybody put their feet flat on the floor, close their eyes, relax in the chair, get ready. And she's doing the meditation. She's saying words. And I don't even remember what she's saying. The woman next to her is singing. And the voice is just heavenly. Just sing, but with some deep timbre to it and marvelous. And she's saying the meditation, and I'm quiet, and all of a sudden, I start feeling this warmth coming up my spine, going right in. You know how you get the goosebumps? When things are good, you get them goosebumps. Well, I got the goosebumps, but they were hot. It was just this warmth, just rolled up over the top onto my scalp, and I had a headache coming in there, and I generally don't get it. Headache's gone. All of a sudden, I realize not only am I all warm and comfortable and just feeling totally at peace, but for some reason, I'm crying. Now, I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm not even sure. I don't even know if I'm crying because I was happy. I don't know, but the tears are I am sitting there in a meditation with my eyes closed, and tears are streaming down my face. I have no idea what the heck is going on here. I decide I'm going to look around. So I open my eyes and look around, and the people had gotten up from their chairs. And some were just standing looking out the window, and they're crying. Now, I know something's going on here that I've not experienced before. And a number of people are going up to the altar. And she is, sure enough, like a modern-day Oral Roberts, standing up there, putting her hands on those people while she's speaking, while she's saying these affirmative, meditative phrases. And people are falling down like sacks of potatoes. And she had the associate minister standing behind grabbing the people. And this is just going through, and I look at Steve, who's sitting next to me. He's not happy. Now, this is very important. Steve is not happy with what's going on. Tommy has got his eyes closed. I'm not sure what's going on with him. But I observe this process of people being touched and something happening. Now, it was a spiritual experience. Now, here's what I'm going to say about it. She said herself, this is what she said, I do not heal. God heals. And so what happened there, I'm just going to tell you what happened. People were healed. Some people were healed. And now in my mind, see, in my critical mind, in my ego mind, I want to argue, oh, it's just group hypnosis. I've got all these logical ideas running through my head about why this, isn't real. And, but I knew something happened because I'd experienced it. I experienced it, and then I said, well, you were hypnotized too. And that's why. And then it took me a couple weeks to actually come to it, and I realized that it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you want to call it group hypnosis. It doesn't matter. What happened was people were healed. Steve was not having any of it. He was not along for the ride in any way whatsoever. He was even upset. He was a Unity member, and the reason he got upset was it pushed some button in him that said this isn't Unity. And so what happened? Mind closed. Mind closed. See, what happened for me was I let myself go into the meditation and relaxed into it and released any of those opinions, and so something happened for me. This is what I really want to get to, is that those were healed, they allowed themselves to be healed. They opened themselves to the power that was available. Those who didn't weren't. And now, I also think that there's another component here that we really don't know what, and this is where the mystery comes in. Because this has been our experience in this church. I have prayed with people and set up routines for them to pray. People who had life-threatening illnesses. And we have had people recover. We have also had people die. So, I asked a question. I said, are you ready to go? And he said, what do you mean? Go? I said, are you ready to die? Are you ready to lay the body down? And people, and they would say, no, I want to live. And so I said, okay, well, if you want to live, hold on to that idea. If you want to keep going on in this body, hold on to that idea and sit and pray and meditate. And I'd give get quiet. This is a healing. I'll give you this little thing and you can use it or don't. But if you're not feeling well, or if you're really sick, same thing. I mean, to spirit, it's no different. So you get quiet. You do your best to release fear and anxiety, just like we do here. You relax the body. Focus on the breath. And then you look within and you see all of the parts of your body. You think about the sick part, whatever that is. There may be actually an organ in you that's ill. There may be some disorder,